Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely dismantle that perfect postcard image of the Great Wall of China. We're going to look right past those beautiful tourist photos to uncover a history that is deep, complex, and honestly incredibly brutal.
So let's just jump right in with a question that kind of challenges everything we think we know. Is the Great Wall actually one continuous wall? Because, most of us picture this unbroken line of stone just stretching infinitely across the mountains, right? We imagine this solitary, majestic barrier dividing the world in two. But is that actually the case?
Well, no. The reality totally shatters that myth. The wall was literally never a single, continuous, or permanent fixture. Instead, we're talking about a highly dynamic, ever-changing series of disjointed border fortifications. These were built, abandoned, and rebuilt over the span of 2 millennia. It's almost better to think of it not as a static noun, but as a verb, an ongoing, fragmented process of reacting to threats over thousands of years. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by deconstructing the wall myth, then look at the geography and early fortifications, explore the eras of shifting strategies, dive into the Ming Dynasty masterpiece, and finally look at its evolution into a symbol. Let's kick things off with part 1, deconstructing the wall myth, 13,000 miles. When you literally add up all the various walls, trenches, and fortifications built by different rulers over thousands of years, that is the staggering total. Just to put that colossal scale into perspective for a second, 13,000 miles is more than half the circumference of the Earth. It was never just one neat construction project with a start and end date. It was this massively fragmented, localized effort spanning centuries of human history. Moving right along to part 2, geography and early fortifications. Okay, so to understand why any of these walls were built in the first place, you really have to look at the geography. It boils down to a dramatic collision of two totally incompatible ways of life. There's this critical climate line called the 15-inch isoyet, which basically marks rainfall. South of this line, you had the agrarian Chinese. Think fertile, settled farmlands, irrigated agriculture, and walled cities. But north of it, the semi-arid grasslands belonged to nomadic pastoralists. And here's the kicker. Because these nomads relied on migratory herding, they couldn't grow their own crops or mine their own ore. They absolutely desperately needed grains and metal from the settled Chinese. So when trade was denied, they naturally turned to raiding. That ecological tension right there, that's the true birthplace of the wall. Now, here's a crazy piece of irony. Early Chinese states actually originally built walls against each other. As far back as 656 BC, walls were just internal defenses used by rival kingdoms. It wasn't until 221 BC that the first Qin emperor stepped in. To defend his newly unified empire from those northern nomads we just talked about, he took these disjointed, pre-existing barriers and basically linked them up into a single system. And back then, they relied heavily on packed rammed earth, not stone. But behind all that sheer ambition of the Qin dynasty was an absolutely appalling human cost. 400,000. That is the estimated number of conscripted laborers, convicts, and soldiers who died building this early barrier. It was just a brutal, massive forced labor project. And tragically, many of those workers were simply buried right inside the earthen walls themselves. The structure literally contains the bones of its builders, meaning its very foundation is cemented in profound human suffering. Which brings us to section 3, eras of shifting strategies. We kind of have this bias where we think every Chinese dynasty just loved the wall and relied on it, right? But history constantly ebbed and flowed. The truth is, the wall was really just one of many strategic choices. You see, while the Qin, Han, Sui, and Ming dynasties poured millions of lives and resources into heavy fortifications, other incredibly powerful dynasties, like the Tang, Yuan, and Qing, they completely ignored it. They actually found that mobile military expansion, open trade, and diplomacy were just way more effective than trying to hide behind a static, immovable wall. In fact, if we look at the timeline during the centuries of disunity, defensive lines were violently shifting. Building walls was often a sign of pure desperation, not strength. Look at these rapid historical transitions. In just a tiny window from 607 to 608 AD, the Sui dynasty mobilized over 1 million men for wall building. Millions were drafted and countless perished under these wildly ambitious but totally short-lived regimes. It really goes to show just how chaotic and frantic border defense could become when a dynasty felt its grip slipping. All right, let's get into part 4, the Ming Dynasty masterpiece. So that iconic stone wall we all picture today, it wasn't born out of absolute strength at all. Actually, it was born from absolute disaster. In 1449, the Ming dynasty suffered the catastrophic Tumu crisis. We're talking over half the Chinese army wiped out in battle, and the emperor himself was captured by the Mongols. No way around it. This military humiliation completely shattered early Ming offensive power, and it basically forced the dynasty into a deeply paranoid, strictly defensive posture. And it was in response to that overwhelming fear that the Ming Dynasty created the masterpiece we know today. This unprecedented, sprawling defense network of stone and brick that just snaked across impossibly steep mountain terrain. They essentially closed off the borders, turned their backs on the steppe entirely, and funneled tremendous wealth into what became a visual and architectural marvel. It was a monumental shift from open engagement to sheer imposing isolation. Now, this era brought some incredible logistical upgrades and technological leaps. General Qi Zhiguang introduced these massive hollow watchtowers. This was a real game changer because for the first time, soldiers actually had interior space to live, store food, and fight safely from within the wall itself. They completely transitioned from packed dirt to fired brick. They integrated heavy artillery and firearms, and they even built complex double and triple layered fortification lines. I mean, it was truly a masterpiece of military engineering. And finally, part 5, evolution into a symbol. So, despite all that brilliant engineering and massive expenditure, the wall's military purpose ended super abruptly in 1644. And the irony here is just wild. The invading Manchu troops didn't even have to breach the wall. They literally just marched right through the open gates at the Shanhai Pass because a defecting Ming general just let them in. It was then left to decay by the subsequent Qing dynasty. It wasn't until 18th and 19th century Western travelers showed up that this wild hyperbole about its scale started spreading like wildfire. Fast forward to the 1930s, during the conflict with Japan, and the wall was completely reinvented by modern Chinese nationalism as this powerful, enduring symbol of patriotism and resilience. Meanwhile, the West became just endlessly fascinated by it. They even invented that famous, and totally false by the way, myth that you can see it from space. Historical figures really grappled with its true meaning too. Voltaire, the philosopher, famously went back and forth between admiring its immense scale and outright condemning it, eventually calling it a monument to fear. It basically became this giant blank canvas for whatever narrative people wanted to project onto it. So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Are historical monuments like the Great Wall testaments to human triumph? Or are they really monuments to fear, isolation, and suffering? Next time you see a postcard of those ancient stones, just ask yourself, what exactly are we choosing to remember? The architectural brilliance, or the millions of lives lost building it? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I really hope it changes